I was talking with Miss Victoria last night. I was talking with Victoria. Do you remember Victoria?
I think so.
She's the short senior.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. I was talking to her and she brought up Josie and like how this one time she was talking with Addie and then Josie told me, it's like, next time, can you guys please just train? And like Victoria.
Sorry, we're late.
No worries, no worries.
He was also like
That it wasn't my app or anything.
No, we're good.
She's 8, right?
She is.
Not a
Yes.
lot of 8-year-olds do that to teenagers.
No.
So like Victoria was praising her a lot of it last night, and she was like,
Hang on a second here.
that I want to tell
Got
her
a
parents.
couple things to fix.
Sure, no worries. Take your time.
Maybe too calm.
Hey, I wish I was like that when I was her age. I was not. No, I was not like that.
Well, she'll go home with anybody. Though. Because we're starting to. Not leaving your
No, Victoria, you know, like Victoria. She praises you because of how confident you are. Yeah, she says you're really confident.
All right, so those of you that came today, you guys, I brought some donuts.
Aww.
That's what you get for snoozing. Guys, you get to miss Hertz donuts.
Oh.
And you get, oh, look at this, all you missing out.
Oh my gosh.
Olivia, you blew it.
Dang it.
I'm so sorry. I had to pull it off a little bit, so. I have no clue. It's just an assorted bunch, so. Yeah, there's plates and napkins, so. First part of this, we're not gonna do much, so we're just gonna kind of go over some things. I need to send you something, Olivia. Actually, I'm gonna share my screen. I just need to get the website here real quick, so.
Cool.
If you want to take one and pass it around, sir.
Olivia, one has Fruity Pebbles on it.
No problem. Please, there's plenty, so you might as well eat. And just let Miss Green know that, you know, that she's missing out. That's what she gets for deciding to stay home.
Yeah, I know.
I know. I know why your foot hurts, right? Is that what it is?
No, I'm just lazy.
Go.
You have it all memorized. We know Natalie has it all memorized. Yeah. One thing. Four. Got it all on lock. Two. Which one?
All right, Miss Olivia, I'm gonna share my screen and hopefully you can see it. Just give me just a second here.
Sure.
And tell me if you can see the screen. Can you see the screen?
Yes.
Okay. I'm gonna try to expand it so that you can see it a little bit clearer. Did that change anything or no? The size of it, can you read it or is it hard to read?
The size changed a little bit. It's kind of hard to read, but I can read there we go. That looks better. Yeah. Thank you.
All right, cool. All right, so we're going to start off with stances real quick. So everyone here has a handout, and I will also send this to you via email. Ms. Olivia, you see it on the screen there. We're going to go from top to bottom, basically, going through all of these basic stances.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay. So as we teach, when we're teaching 10 basic stance, we teach the moa sogi or the closed stance as a tension. All right, it's actually a stance. Moa sogi is closed stance. All right, meaning feet are together, heels are together, ankles are together. All right, so that's the moa sogi or the attention stance, as we say it. We will eventually change terminology in 10 basic stance to this criteria a little bit better. But for now, we'll still continue to do it as attention and then jumbi. So your moa sogi is your closed stance. There are two instances that you have it, basically in every attention position, and then in take a kirtan, where you do your A stance. Here, feet together, all right? So, all right, the next one is the narani sogi, or your parallel stance. So that's your jumbi stance. That's your jumbi position. Generally speaking, the space in between your feet is 1 foot length, one of your feet length. Now, it's not an exact science. Keep that in mind, right? You're not gonna, we teach the kids, okay, measure out 1 foot length and then go ahead and step through. But the reality is that it's an approximation, right? When Taekwondo was developed, back in the old times and so forth, the way that they measured was usually through the length of feet, because they didn't have rulers or anything like that, or the length of your fist, right? And so typically, in tradition with the way it was presented, we kind of follow that same suit. So with that narani sogi or that parallel stance, or chubi stance, your feet are always going to be about 1 foot length wide. Right? So keep that in mind there. And you notice that the feet are always straight. And it's based off of the inner line. So the big foot or the big toe line, that's the line that we measure from. Okay? And then I always use the analogy of railroad tracks. Your feet should be on 2 separate railroad tracks. Okay? Now keep this in mind as well. When you're in this stance here, everything that we kind of do for every other stance, your walking stance, your front stance, your back stance, right, is going to be based off of the spacing here. Okay? It's going to be based off of the spacing. All right, so the next one that's on there is the apgubi. Excuse me, is it apsogi? Apsogi, sorry, apsogi, which is your front stance, or excuse me, walking stance. Apsogi, walking stance. So basically, from here, from your jumbi position, the first thing that you want to pay attention to is the angle of the back foot, the foot that's going to be in the back. So that angle basically is going to be 30 degrees. So 30 degrees from the direction that you're facing, open. Okay, so that's the angle of that back foot. And then the front foot will move forward 3 foot lengths. So where your front foot currently is right now is 1. Then you have a second foot length forward, and then a third. All right? Otherwise, and they call this a walking stance because of a normal stride. What's your normal stride when you walk? All right. So most people don't walk like this. All right. But yet when we do punse and we do a lot of walking stances, we see a lot of this. All right. Very short stance. So we want to make sure that we're encouraging our students to get that 3 foot length, back foot, front foot, and then an imaginary foot in between. Okay. The hardest thing that the hardest thing for young students is to get that back angle, that back foot angle, that 30-degree opening, okay? They don't understand 30 degrees. You're not gonna tell a 5-year-old, okay, open your back foot up 30 degrees. They're not gonna understand that, okay? So you wanna make sure, right, the biggest thing for children, little children, right, up to probably about 8 years old, right? We just wanna make sure that they're doing 3 foot lengths, all right? We want them 3 foot, okay, instead of this. All right. From like 8 on up, now we start to think about, okay, not just this, but that back foot's got to turn a little bit. And the way that you train this is, right, one of the drills that you can do is you can use the floor, markings on the floor. You can have someone put like their belt on the floor at home on Zoom. And then from their belt, wherever they place their belt, they step back 3 steps. So 1 step, 2 step, 3 step here. And then from here, they practice moving forward to the belt or that line. It's the easiest way to learn it, all right? Getting that consistency. The other thing that you have to remember, especially for black belts, right? This might be foreign, this might be new, this might, right? Because you're so used to practicing a certain way. To understand the feeling of it, you want to just kind of stand there and hold that position for 30 seconds, 1 minute, and then return back, and then go it again, and hold it for another 30 seconds. Hold that position to get comfortable with what it feels like, because everything that we do should be feeling based, right? We should know what it feels like to get into a good walking stance, right? An apsogi, right? Or a good parallel stance, a narani sogi. We should know that, okay, this feels a little bit too deep. All right? This feels much more comfortable. We should kind of understand with ourselves, okay, if this feels natural, then we got to fix this. So now for a while, we have to make the unnatural feeling, we have to make that become natural. So you have to get rid of some of your bad habits, all right? And I'm not saying bad in a negative way. It's just a habit that wasn't addressed when you were coming up. All right? Trust me, I'm learning all this stuff too. And I have to retrain myself how to do a low block, a down block. Right? Terminology, I have to retrain myself because you're gonna see me. I'm catching myself saying, oh, down block. No, low block, low block, low block. Right? Trying to get more consistent with the terminology piece. Okay?
Learn it, unlearn it, now relearn it.
Relearn it, yes, right? So, once again, right, that's how we get better though, right? We have to, as not only as instructors or students or athletes, right? If you want to get better, you have to learn to adapt. Things change, right? Your way is not always correct, right? You have to be willing to change things, all right? And a lot of that comes from watching people, watching others, doing your research. And that's what we're doing here is as we're doing these instructor trainings, it's all about the research. All right. Now, I'm giving you as much information so that you can build your books. So, these handouts and so forth, add these to your books and build that foundation. That way you have that. Okay. All right. So that's the apsogi. All right. Or the walking stance. Weight is balanced, right, in between both feet. Both knees are straight. Now, if we go to the apkubi, which is the front stance, right, it's the same foot positioning. Everything starts in that narani position, 30-degree opening, right? And then instead of 3 steps, we're looking at 4, which causes 4 to 4.5, which causes our front knee to bend. Back leg should still remain straight. All right? Now, the key to this, the foot length doesn't always work, especially in today's day and age, because there are freakishly large human beings with freakishly either small feet or large feet. Right? There are people that are 5'10" that have a size 7 foot. Right? And then there are people that are, 5'10" that have size 12 feet. So if you do the accurate measurement, it doesn't look right. Sometimes it doesn't look right. This usually happens with the teenagers more so, because they're in that growing phase, right? So their body is changing. So what's important to keep in mind when we do this is, first thing, back leg, right? Once you have that opened up to the 30-degree, back leg should be completely straight. Okay? Now, since I'm not wearing uniform pants, you can see that my back leg is straight. The other way that you can tell a back leg is straight is by looking at their back heel, right? If that back heel is not pressed into the ground, tendency is that that back knee is going to be a little bit bent. When you push that heel into the ground, that really locks out that knee. Okay? So as you're helping students or whatever, for some students, their pant leg you can kind of see in the uniform because of the way it sits on their leg, it's bent. But when you're teaching and you're walking around, look for that back heel to be pushed into the ground. Okay? It's a good stretch for your calf. Right? So that's the first thing. The second thing that you want to make sure is the front knee is bent. Okay, front knee is bent. All right, that's the second thing. Now, the bending of the front knee, it's very important. For younger students, you might see a lot of this. Okay, and this is incorrect. All right, so Miss Olivia, can you see in the camera here? All right, what's incorrect about this? I think you're on mute.
Sorry, I was on mute.
Yeah.
Okay, but it was not only is it too narrow, but both legs are bent.
Mm-hmm. But
And
I'm just
like,
talking about the front leg. What's wrong with the front leg view?
there's like too much. It's not far out enough, or like is the knee over? No, hold on. I don't know.
Okay. All right.
But the back leg is wrong.
I'm not talking about the back leg. Oh my goodness. Listening ears. Do I have to teach? Do I have to train you like I do the little kids? Let's use our listening ears. Front leg. I'm just talking about the front leg. I'm not worried about the back leg right now. I just want to say the front leg. So what's wrong with this front leg, right, Mr. Yurkowitz?
Did you put too much weight on it and bend it like over your toes?
Okay, so Chance is saying that I put too much weight on the front leg, right? And I'm over-exaggerating this, but the second part of his statement is really the correct one, which is my knee is over my toes, okay? So when you see like adults do this, right? This dance really doesn't look very comfortable, right? It doesn't look comfortable. I may feel, my body tells me it's comfortable, but it really doesn't look comfortable, right? Does it look comfortable, Miss Olivia? Can you see from your vantage point?
No, it doesn't look comfortable.
It doesn't look comfortable, right? So what you want to remember on the stance is to make sure that that knee is vertical from the ankle bone. That's where we want it. That's the length that we want. That's what we want right there. Okay? We don't want it back like this, because then if it's back, then what usually happens is that front knee ends up going straight. So now your front stance looks like this. All right? And then once again, you tell them to bend their knees, sometimes they do this. Okay. All right, now they over-exaggerate it. Now for kids, right, that doesn't bother them. All right? I guarantee Mr. Danielle, Mr. Hyatt, Miss Olivia, when you guys do this, you're going to be like, oh, hold on. I don't like that. It hurts the knee. All right? So like even for me, this hurts. This hurts just demonstrating. Even though I can hide it in my face, it hurts. All right? This feels so much better. Okay? So we want to make sure that the knee is in line with the ankle bone. So it should be a straight line. All right? So that's the second thing. Now, once again, if you look at your diagram there, it shows like almost 4.5 to 5 foot lengths. All right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yep. Okay. So for taller people, for longer legged people, yes, that 5 foot length is going to make it look a lot better. Because sometimes if they go straight to the 4 or even 4.5, their knee is slightly over the toes. And we don't want that. So like if you're working with Mr. Hammer or Mr. Doryland, who are really tall, right? And they have long legs, you need to make sure, right, they're kind of sitting back instead of this. Okay? Once again, the mindset here is just because you can doesn't always mean you should. All right?
Quick question for you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Question.
Just terminology. It says close stance, parallel stance, walking stance, front stance. And they're all shogi except for now it goes kubi.
Kubi, yeah.
What's the difference? Is stance different in?
Stance in Korean is sogi. That's the true translation, sogi. So apsogi, wansogi, right? They did apkubi, right? I think partly because they wanted to change what ITF was doing. Because apsogi is your front stance in ITF. Okay, now remember, ITF came before Kukiwon. Right? Kukiwon broke off of ITF. Right? And so Kukiwon, in order to create their image, they started to change things. So now it wasn't forms anymore. It was pumse. Right? So, but the definition of a pumse is a form. But yeah, so they made changes. Some of them aren't consistent. Keep that in mind.
Just wondering.
Yeah. So I mean that's why like sometimes you'll hear me say apsogi. No, I meant apkubi, right? Because I get it mixed up in my head as well. So, all right. So yeah, so because also too, ITF doesn't have walking stance. All right. To tell you the truth, walking stance, they used to call, ITF called this walking stance. All right. They didn't use the term front stance because front stance is karate or forward stance. Karate uses forward stance, front stance. All right. So, and they didn't want to be, if you know anything about Korean history, right? Korean was dictated by Japan for a long time. And so anything that was Japan or referenced Japan, they didn't care for. So they tried to change it up. All right. They didn't like the term Korean karate because it associated itself with Japanese rules. So, but yet Taekwondo's origins did come from a lot of karate-based martial arts. So, all right. So the history behind all of this, you know, they're all intermixed. You know, so Taekwondo has a lot of the things that karate did, right? But once again, they decided to focus in more on developing your leg versus continuing to work on that upper body, which is naturally quicker, faster, easier to adapt. So, all right. So once again, front stance, all right, your apkubi. You want to make sure you're pressing kind of opposing forces. So I'm pressing toward my back heel as well as pressing forward at the same time. It gives you that good balance. Okay. You also see a spacing of a fist in between the heels, the line of the heels. Okay. So usually that occurs when you're in your ready stance. When you open or when you pivot that foot, that one foot to about 30 degrees, now there's your fist width of space in between the heels. So the line that separates the 1 foot length is based off of the ball of the foot or the toes, where your toes are. So where the toes are, that's your 1 foot width for your chubi stance. And then your heel, that one fist where the heels together, that's where you're in this motion here. All right? When you go into walking stance and when you go into front stance, you need to make sure as well, you're going to find a lot of students like to stay this way, squared. They're doing this, and they find themselves getting off balance. Sabina DeLine. Right? That's why she rocks back and forth. Right? Because she's here trying to get her balance, because she's here. That's why she rocks back and forth. Right? Okay, so what you want to make sure is whatever direction my hips are, I want my shoulders to mimic. I want my shoulders to be the exact same as my hips. All right? Because then you're going to be more balanced. Even though it's a narrower stance, you're going to be more balanced. Okay? So you want to make sure, right? If my left leg is in front, my left shoulder should be forward, not my left and right shoulder equal. Right? My left shoulder should be slightly forward of my right shoulder. It shouldn't be square. Okay? So that's the same thing when you punch. Right? When you do a block, it's easy because that hand's out in front. But when you punch, a lot of people stop here. And then they find themselves kind of struggling with balance. Bring the shoulder forward a little bit. Right? Once again, it gives you extra reach, right? Adds more power to the technique as well. Okay? All right. Any questions so far? I know for Punse people, you guys already kind of know this because we spent a lot of time fixing this, but for Mr. Hyatt, Mr. Daniel. Ms. Green, you okay?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So next stance is your tikubi, back stance. Okay. So your tikubi is the same length as your walking stance, 3 foot lengths from front to back foot. And now as you notice in the diagram, the heels are not on the same line. Okay. So what usually happens is if you've got 1 foot on the line, then the other foot should be right adjacent to it. Okay? So it's like basically from your attention position, your moasogi, right? Your close stance. Right? If you were to just turn your foot there, that's the width of your stance. Okay, heels adjacent. Because a lot of times, old school, we used to say, okay, put your heel right back behind. So when you go into your fighting stance, heels on the same line. All right, that's ITF. All right, WTF didn't like that. They want to move over. All right. 1, because they don't want to be associated with the old. All right. 2, just like anything else, right? If it's out here a little bit, straighter line. Here, you kind of got to come around just a little bit. It's not much, right? Much to the naked eye, but think about Cookie One, and what we're teaching right now is more science-based, meaning shorter stances. It's not like the traditional ITF stances, which are really deep and strong and powerful, right? We're talking about speed, right? How do I get from point A to point B as fast as I can, right? You shorten the length of the line, okay? You shorten the length of the line. So the smaller the stance, the faster that line is from point A to point B. So that's the philosophical difference that you have to understand. The WT is more sport oriented. Sport oriented is all about speed, how fast you can do things, how fast you can score a point, how fast you can get your kick from my leg to your face. All right? If I'm standing in this kind of a stance, it's a lot slower for me to get my foot to your face than it is if I'm standing this way or this way, all right? Or even this way with that back heel up. All right? Because it's all about weight shift, understanding your body weight, shifting that weight. Okay? All right, so your tikubi, your back stance, looks like the letter L, 90-degree turn on that back leg, front foot straight ahead, 3 foot lengths. Now from a weight distribution standpoint, this is always the tricky part. A lot of people do back stance this way. All right, so Ms. Green, I'll put you on the spot again. Okay? What's wrong with this stance here? The stance. Okay? What's wrong with this stance?
Your weight distribution seems to be more on the front end than on the back where it should be.
Correct. Correct. All right. So a lot of people, they do their back stance and look like this. All right. It looks like it, right? It looks like it, but the reality is weight distribution is wrong. Okay? Because why? All right? People are used to kind of sitting down into the stance. So they keep everything equally balanced. So bend to the front knee, bend to the back knee, equal. So now I'm 50% weight. So ITF, they have a stance like this called the fixed stance. This is your fixed stance, which is a combination of that back stance and your horse riding stance. All right? Kukiwon or WT does not have a fixed stance. They just have the back stance. So the back stance, we have to make sure that the back knee is bent a little bit more. Okay? What you want to try to see when you're looking from a side view, right? So make sure I'm doing this right, Miss Olivia. Right? Basically, my toe, my knee, my right hip, my right shoulder are all in a straight line. Is that correct? Mr. Yerkowitz, is that correct? Can you see it? Is everything lined up here for me? Yes. Okay. So this is my back stance here. Okay. Not this. More here. Okay. But you also notice too that my front knee is also bent. Your front knee does need to bend. Okay. And you'll see students, they'll straighten out that front knee like this and do this. And that is incorrect. All right. So we don't want this either. We're straight. One of the exercises that you can teach or you can tell people is that if they have a blank wall at home, right, just stand up next to that wall, put their shoulder and their back leg up against the wall there, like this, all right, and then just get their foot down and kind of sit and let everything touch that wall.
One thing that helped me too, sir, is being in that stance and kicking with my front leg.
Kicking with the front leg. So Mr. Daniel said what helped him was kicking with the front leg in this stance.
Because you want to be up, you want your foot off the ground, more weight off it.
Right? Because once again, right, if you're balanced, then what happens when you try to kick with your front leg? You shift and then you kick. All right? When you're here, you don't necessarily have to shift a lot. It's easier, right?
From the cheat sheets here.
It works. It works. Okay. So any questions on the Tikubi back stance? All right. All right. So you have your Juchunsigi, which is your horse riding stance. Juchunsigi. All right. So in this respect here, okay. Once again, they recommend 2 foot lengths in between the feet. So, right? 1, 2, out. Here. Now, once again, you have a freakishly tall person with a unusually small foot. All right? Their horse riding stance looks like this. All right? Looks like this. It doesn't look very comfortable. It looks very awkward. All right? So one of the things that I like to do, right? This is your litmus test, right? When you walk by and you see someone doing a horse riding stance, okay, right? If you have the giggle factor going on inside, you need to help. You need to fix their stance, okay? If you inside start to giggle, or in Miss Olivia's case, you giggle out loud when you're teaching, right? Then you're gonna want to help fix that. Okay? Right? Right? Because, right? We want it to be comfortable, right? We want it to be solid. And a lot of times here, right, especially with the taller people or whatever, like this, once again, it gives you the giggle factor. All right? Because it doesn't look right at all. Right? If you're smirking, right? So you want to make sure that they're sitting down into this. Once again, right? It's 2 of your narani sogis, right? So it's 2 of your parallel stances. So you're sitting and you're down. Okay? That's what we want to concentrate on. And if you notice what's happening here is, this is another thing. Okay? A lot of times when they do this, people lean forward. Right? People lean forward. The shoulders are forward. And that's incorrect. Okay, now this is the hard part of horse riding stance. Okay, here you have to bring the hips forward. This is hard, right? Especially for the ladies, because ladies have childbearing hips, and so they counterbalance by leaning forward. All right? The reality is that when you do a horse riding stance, right, you want the that hip bone to be in line with the heels. Here. So if I were to come up and draw a straight line from your hip down to your heels, yeah, your knees are going to be out in front, but your hip and your heel are going to be in a straight line vertically. All right? And that's the challenging part of this. Here is they gotta bring the hip forward. Here. But then what happens if they bring it too far forward? They lose their balance. Right? Because they got some junk in the trunk or something, right? So you want to make sure good balance here, but they got to push that hip forward just a little bit. Okay? All right. Homsogi, tiger stance. So Pomsogi sets up from your Moasogi, your close stance. Right? Okay. So the heels are together, heels are touching, right? And then what you do is it's bring 1 foot forward, basically one step. So now it's 2 feet deep. Okay. You're going to open up your back foot again. Right? That back foot, just like you did with the walking stance, 30 degrees. All right. So the front heel, the back of the front heel, and the edge of the back big toe, the front edge of the back big toe, is your lineup. That's how you align yourself for the stance. All right. So it's going to be in this motion here. Now what happens here is front foot comes up. Now it doesn't have to come up really high at all. It just has to lift. Basically what we're doing is we're trying to ease the weight off, right? Because if it's flat, then we tend to push down. So we're trying to relieve the weight off of that front leg. So when you bend your knee a little bit and just lift your heel up off the ground, now you've shifted the weight to your back leg. Right? The second part of this is we need to make sure that the back knee bends forward. Here. Okay? So this motion. All right? Any Michael Jackson fans here? All right? All right? The King of Pop. It's his go-to move when he does his thing. All right? Right? He comes up and then comes down. He kind of pushes that hip forward. This motion here. All right? He had some hands to it, which I'm not going to demonstrate. Right? But we all get the gist of it. All right? Right? So this stance is designed as a defense mechanism. Right? The reason why we bend that back knee and we kind of sit down into this is to allow the knee as a barrier to block against a kick going up into the groin region. That's why you have to push the knee forward. And so it feels a little awkward because your back foot is opened up 30 degrees, but you're pushing your knee forward a little bit. That's the tricky part. Here, but pushing the knee forward. Okay? So all your weight is kind of sitting in that. So we want students to kind of sit down into this stance. We want their back to kind of arch a little bit, right? Kind of like they're sticking their butt out. All right? In this motion here. Obviously, this comes up, the first time when you become a red belt in Shirchan. All right? So you want to make sure that this is a good solid foundation here. All that weight, basically 90% of that weight should be on that rear leg and 10% on the front. Any questions on Pomsogi? Tiger stance?
No, sir.
No? Okay. Orunsogi, Wensogi. Right stance and left stance. Orunsogi, Wensogi. Old school it used to be called a T stance. Your feet were in the shape of the letter T. All right? Now it's changed to be more in line with your back stance. So it's designed just like your back stance, heels adjacent to one another, but it's 2 foot lengths. And instead of bending your knees and sitting back on that back leg, you're balanced like a walking stance position. Right? So you have your Odum Sogi and your One Sogi in Taeguk Ojang, right? Downward hammer fist movement. So you're balanced, right? There's no lean, right? You want to make sure that basically back shoulder, hip, knee, heel of that back leg straight, almost straight up and down. Okay? Not leaning back like this, not leaning forward like this. And then once again, it's 2 foot lengths. Okay? 2 foot lengths. So yes.
I have a question about Taeguk Ojang. When we're doing our Orensogi and Wensogi, is the foot coming back to the heel or no? Because I remember where it did before and then now it looks like it doesn't, or
It does not.
okay.
You go from your forward stance, your front stance, into in. So from here, I go from here to here.
Okay.
That's it. Not all
So
the way.
not okay.
No. All right. So it is a right stance, right? It is a right stance or orun sogi if your right foot is in front. Okay. It's a wen sogi or left stance if your left foot's in front. All right. So next one, up sogi. Up sogi. Okay, your up sogi is found in Koryo, which is a front cross stance, X stance, cross stance. Okay. So the way the up sogi works is back foot comes forward in front of the front leg. Okay. And you place it down on the same line. So like in Koryo, right, when you do your punch, right, it's not a stepping up kick. Most people think it's a stepping up side kick, and it's not. Right? All it is strike and punch, cross stance into a side kick. Okay? So you're moving into a stance and then you're kicking from there. So when you do that cross stance, you want to make sure that you're on that same line. So a lot of people, when they cross, they put that foot in front of their leg and out in front, and you don't want that either. You want to cross over the top, so you stay on the same line. So you cross, place that foot down, and then the other foot comes up onto the ball. All right? So from a side view, it's going to look like this. Now the space between the back foot where the toes are up, or excuse me, where the toes are on the ground, the heel is up, and your the foot with the heel on the floor is 1 foot fist length. So boom, right there. There's your fist length space. Okay? So the up sogi happens in Koryo. Knife hand punch, cross, and lift. The other thing you want to make sure is that the calves of the leg, of both legs are touching. Right? They're touching on this sogi. Okay? Now the sogi is found in Taeguk Ojang and Taeguk Churchang. All right? So in the sogi, right, that's the back cross stance. 1, 2. So the back foot comes up behind. Okay? Now usually this happens, like in Ojang, you do it in a stomping motion, right? So I do my front snap kick, I stomp down, and then boom, there's my sogi because I bring that back foot forward to my front leg. All right? And then in Chirchang, right, when you do your head smash, you place the foot down. It's not a stomp, it's just a place down, but then the back foot comes up. Same spacing. Same spacing, right? That back foot, back heel up, right? The toes of that foot should be 1 fist away from the side of the heel, front heel. Okay? In both instances, right? The leg that's in front or the leg that's moving forward, that foot is always flat. And then the rear foot is up on the toes or up on the ball of the foot. Okay? All right, next one is hakdari sogi, or crane stance. All right, this is found in Kungan, second degree. So your hakdari sogi, all right, is your typical one-legged stance. All right. Now keep in mind, when you're standing on one leg, all right, a lot of people think, oh yeah, if I straighten out my knee, I can stand better. All right. It's hard to balance when your knee is locked. So in your hakdari sogi, or your crane stance, you want to maintain the bend of a horse riding stance. So whatever you do to go into your horse riding stance, when you go into your hakdari sogi, it's the same thing, same bend. Okay? Now the lifted leg, you want to make sure that the arch of your foot is up on the side of the knee. So up on the side of the knee this way, kind of up against the knee. That's what we want here. So you're not forcing you're not trying to lift the toes up or point the toes down. You're just gonna just naturally lift and let your ankle hang. All right, and then here. Now, for balance purposes, right? It's important, all right? For a lot of people, when they struggle with balance, it's because of two things. All right, one, weak core. All right, too many Hertz donuts. All right, potato chips, soda pop, all right? All right, so the core is weak, right? They don't do enough sit-ups, basically, all right? So I always encourage, when you want someone to see how strong they are in the core, have them kind of push that stomach out so that you can't poke your finger into their stomach, all right? That's what toughens up that core. That's what shows how strong that core is. Right? Yeah, we don't want to, right, when they push, right? Or if you can pinch an inch kind of thing, we don't want that, all right? But you want to make sure that they're kind of pushing out those stomach muscles. That'll help create that better base so that they can be still, all right? The hardest thing about this is here, once this happens, it's over, all right? Once that ankle starts to move violently like this, it's over. They're not going to be able to hold that position, all right? All right, in Pumse, that signifies your defeat in competition. All right, the moment you start wiggling violently like that, you're done. All right, there's no return from that. All right, you're not gonna be able to save it. All right, God can't even help you with that one. All right, you're done. All right, so you want to make sure, all right, bring it up easy, because the other thing too is, right, in the form itself. In Kumgang, there's instances where you have to pivot into it, right, which is hard. And then there's other instances where you just lift into it, and that's even harder. Right? You would think the opposite. You would think that just lifting is easy. But the problem is because people are so used to, oh, I got to snap the pivot and I got to hold. Yeah. Right? You do that all the time, you'd be champion. Right? But when you have to do this, they try to do the same thing. When they go from here, going to the next move, they go here like this, right? They try to snap it up. And so now the weight starts to teeter-totter, right? So it's all about being able to understand how much do I shift to get to here. Here. All right? Here. 1, 2. If I try to go fast, now I'm fighting it. Just that little bit, because all my momentum is going that way. So it's just a slight transition. Yeah. One of the other things that I want you guys to imagine or think about when you're doing this hakdari sogi is kind of squeezing the knees together toward each other. Okay? Now, when you do that with one leg up in front, then what usually happens is this. Right? Otherwise known as the I need to go pee position, right? Right? It happens here like this. Okay? So it's important to understand, right? The concept is I'm trying to squeeze my knees together as I'm holding this position. So if I'm squeezing my knees, if I'm only squeezing my knees, then it's gonna give me this motion here. All right? This motion. Okay? But if if I'm trying to squeeze properly, right, I put the weight on my ankle that's up, and I squeeze the knee in this way. Now it's better. Now I'm not doing this. I'm pushing with my ankle, my whole leg basically. I'm moving this way with the raised leg to create that balance here. You have to have a lot of not only core strength, but leg strength. So one of the things that I encourage students that are struggling with this, that are struggling being able to stand on one leg, is they need to, right, practice at home, just right here, just standing here like this. They can hold something, but they need to, when they're holding something, we don't want them to lean on it, right? Because then they're just taking all the weight off, right? So we want them to practice standing like this, right? They can hold for balance, but hold this, right? In that bent position. Because now, because it's bent, the quad and the hamstring and the calf are all engaged. We're building strength, right? And we want to try to minimize this, that ankle wiggle. Okay? All right. And then the final stance, yes, you have a question? Do you have a question, Mrs. Green? No? Okay. All right, so the Kyoteri Sogi is the assisted stance. This one you guys have not seen because you guys don't know any of the high-level black belt kunseis, but it's what we call an assisted stance, which is basically kind of like a crane stance, but the instep of your foot is behind the knee, this way. Right. So this is found in Hansu. In Hansu, which is 8th degree kunsei. So we won't go over too much detail with that particular one there, but the other ones you want to be very knowledgeable with because we utilize those a lot. So, all right. Any questions or thoughts? Anything that I missed, or you want me to explain a little bit better? So a lot of this is, once again, I know a lot of you guys know this. You have to apply it as well. That's the key. All right. The easiest way to apply is to practice yourself, right? Practice teaching the movement yourself. Try to utilize the Korean as much as possible, because I'm gonna, like I said, I'm gonna continue to push that moving forward. So with that in mind, I was planning on trying to do some blocks, but since our time is short today, so I got a late start, I do apologize, and I didn't realize that I was going to go into that much, or it was going to take this long to get through these stances. So these are your basic, your basic stances for Kukiwan Kunsei. All right, from Kibanir-chan all the way up through Ilyo, all right, which is ninth degree. These are all your stances. There's no other stances there. Okay. All right. No questions? All right, that's all I have for you guys. So have a good night or a good day. Great afternoon. Enjoy your weekend. So, all right. So you guys are free to go. You can have an extra donut on Olivia's part since she missed out.
Yes.
I'm not saving the donut for you, just so you know. When you get back on Wednesday, that's your fault for missing. You should have come to class.
Yes, sir.
I'm just here. All right. But you know, Olivia, since you're doing a lot of teaching right now, any questions on anything?
No, I think what I will try to focus on is a lot of like our basic stances. I'm going to try to get in the habit of saying that, like, holding myself accountable for using that terminology in class more.
That'll help you with your knowledge base, right? That's the thing.
Yeah.
The more you use it, the better, more inclined you're going to remember, and so forth. Those of you who are planning on testing, right? This stuff is going to be on the test, just so you know. So any aspect of this will be on the test. I might ask you to demonstrate. I might ask you to give me the details to it. I might ask you, you know, what's the name of it in Korean or what's the name of it in English. All right, so those are you planning on testing here in the near future. All right. Yeah. Yeah. So once again, don't worry about, you know, like the Koteri Sogi, right? The very last one, you won't have to worry about that one. Okay. But if you're second degree, up to second degree, you should know all the other ones. You should know the other 12. So.
Sir.
All right. So yeah, testing will come up quick, just so you guys know. All right, we're already at the end of August, so we got September, October, November, December. 3 months. 3 months, and then the year's done. All right, you can change the tide of 2020 by successfully passing the test in December. Otherwise, we're in for 2021 being just as bad as 2020. No pressure on you that are testing. Did you hear? Black Panther died.
I heard.
That was crazy. Colon cancer. That is nuts. He did all those reels. 42. Young.
Yeah, this year sucks.
Hey, Scooby-Doo, the creator of Scooby-Doo died. And Tom and Jerry too. My childhood is going away. Crazy stuff. All right. Okay, thanks for joining us, Miss Olivia.
Bye, sir.
Tell Jess I said hi.
I will.
All righty. See ya.
Yeah, yeah.